Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So I've got a review of day 1 and 2 at Aintree. We had a couple of good results, we've had a couple of not good results. Just unlucky with Severance finishing second, beaten by our top rated horse, which makes it even more frustrating. But I thought I'd highlight horses that caught my eye or that we need to check their handicap marks next Tuesday. And there's actually two from the Betway Bowl. Clandis Obo, it was great to see him back and win. Lots of comments about, back to form. Was he? He was RTR2 on our ratings. It's not that long ago that he was top rated. It's not like we thought he was down. He dropped away and he was RTR 7, 8, 9. He was RTR 2, so he still had a great chance. But anyway, let's talk about those that are interesting. The first one is Royal Pagaille. He ran off a mark of 164. I think the handicapper might drop him for that. And if he does, bizarrely, he'll be the same weight if he drops a pound or less than when winning this Peter Marsh the second time. If the handicapper drops him a pound, then they go back for the Peter Marsh again. That'll be where I think they end up with Royal Pagaille. I wouldn't want him anywhere else. Just in these handicaps, on this heavy going, I think he can do it. But as soon as it becomes good to soft, good, any of those sort of ground conditions, he just struggles, particularly at the top level. He's a heavy ground specialist. The second horse that I think we should look at is a horse called Itchy Feet, and this is, again, surely where he goes next. It's the Monet's Garden in October. Now, I don't think we'll see him again this season. But when he ran here, he was just behind All Mankind. He beat Midnight Shadow, who went and won a decent handicap at Cheltenham, and he was in front of Fanny and Destravel, who won a decent handicap at Newbury. Itchy Feet was already running off a mark of 150, £3 lower than when second in this handicap. So this is a handicap. If he drops another, because he pulled up, if we just go back to the result, he pulled up. I think they'll drop him another £2 or £3, which would then mean he could be potentially £5 lower than when actually running really well over 2.5 in a handicap. That's his level. He's a very good handicapper, a bit like Royal Pagaille. He's not a grade 1 horse. Stick Itchy Feet back in this handicap, and I think he can run another big race next season in the Old Road. A lot of these targets are going to be looking at the next season. I've got one from the Betway Aintree Hurdle, but I'm not sure where he's going to go, but I do want to keep an eye out for him. And that's McFabulous. I've been calling for McFabulous to run in a handicap, and they missed the Coral Cup because of the ground, and they've come here now. I can understand why they came here. They finished third. They got good prize money. It helped Paul Nicholls probably going on to retain his champion trainer award, whatever you call it. He went so well. He travelled really well. He hit the front. He looked like he was going to play a big part. He ended up finishing third because that's what he is. He's a very, very good handicapper. I just wonder whether they might try and run him in Lanzarote next year. This year it was worth 57,000 or just shy of 57,000 to the winner, which is a decent prize for a handicap. Now, I know he would be carrying top weight, but if they find him another race over 2.5, maybe 2, maybe 3 mile, in a graded race and he drops again, I think he could end up in the Lanzarote of a workable mark for him. I think he can anyway, whatever he runs in handicap-wise. It's just normally the Lanzarote hurdle, they don't quite... the 150 horses don't often run there. That said, a few years ago they did... Who ran in it a few years ago? Something ran off 151. So off 150 he could certainly run. If they can get him down another couple of pounds and then turn up in the Lanzarote, I'd be very, very keen on McFabulous. So keep an eye out for that sort of plan next season. Couple from the Red Rum. The first one is our selection, Gunsight Ridge. He ran a shocker. He went a 4-1. I found him at 14s, spoke about him in a few videos, and then he went off and ran like that. He jumped a couple and then slowly dropped back and ended up pulling up. Now, one of the things I asked on Twitter was, did any tipster tip him up? A high-profile one. Not like me or some small tipster or analyst that doesn't really have much of a following, but I'm talking of the price-wise, Paul Keeley's, Andrew Mount maybe, Rory Jalagi, Hugh Taylor, those sort of tipsters. If they tip a horse up and it gets backed, well, that's why. But if there's no big name tipsters that actually tip a horse up and it gets backed, you have to think, why did it get backed? What was the reason? And for me, I already fancied Gunsight Ridge, so that's just given me more confidence that Gunsight Ridge is actually well handicapped. It just wasn't his day yesterday, but don't give up on him. Where do I think they'll go? I think they'll go and win another race next time. They'll go to Exeter for this race that they finished second in this year. Look who they finished second to. Lom Press. They obviously had no chance. Why do I think they'll go and win next time? Well, he's going to drop in the handicap for his effort yesterday, and that would then mean he's not going to get in any of the feature handicaps. That's surely the target for Gunsight Ridge, is the feature handicaps. So they need to win something now, and they might as well go and try and win the race at Exeter that they bumped into one last year. The second horse that's interesting from that race for me was Shake 'em Up Harry, who you can see never traded much shorter, or didn't trade shorter than 9-1. And why was that? Because he never looked like he was going to win, but he's run on really, really strongly. Now, the race that catches my eye for him is this one here, the race in late November at Newbury. He's got some decent form at Newbury. He's run some good races. The long straight will suit him. And I just wonder whether they might even drop him a little bit for this. The fact he's got some good form at Newbury would be why I'd be looking at the Newbury race for him. This one here. And it's good prize, man. It's 20 grand to the winner. The final horse that we want to keep in mind is Sky Pirate. He's dropped again, or he will drop again for his effort, I imagine. We'll keep an eye on what he drops to. He was fourth. If they can drop him another couple of pounds, he'll be getting down to that mark that he won the Grand Annual a few years ago off. This year he travelled fine but hated the ground, so don't give up on Sky Pirate next season. On to today, and delighted to see Langardan win. Great price on the exchanges, 8.41, 7 and a bit to 1 that is. Surely Phil Doody is bumping into horses, isn't he? He has been beaten by Langardan, who I think was probably one of the best handicapped horses in training. And last time out, he got beat by Unexpected Party, who went up £12. So was probably one of the most well-handicapped horses in training. Phil's Doodaree's bumped into 2 of them. Just got to keep an eye on what they do with the handicap mark of Phil's Doodaree. If they don't go very high, they go maybe £1 or £2, he's definitely one to keep an eye on. And I'll try and spot him when he next runs. The Mardmay Novices, great to see a Hoisinor win. That's interesting. So earlier on in Langardan's race, the exchange odds were much bigger. In this race, they were actually smaller. We can see he went up 4-1 with the bookies, and he went off just over between 7-2 and 4-1 on the exchanges. Don't know if there is one. Be some silly one like 21-5 or some. No, that's over 4-1. But anyway, I thought he beat them on merit. I do. I think he jumped better. He didn't really hit any. He made a couple of slow jumps again. But at Aintree, they've been talking about missing Cheltenham for Aintree. He came to Aintree and he won. Delighted with that. He's not 20-1 for the Gold Cup. He's as short as 6s, which is too short. But if they sort his jumping out and really work on it over the summer, I think he'll beat these again. I think he'll beat Fury Road, Long Press, Brave Man's Game. I do think Aplutara is his biggest danger if he jumps effectively. If he jumps a couple slow, that would be fine. I think he's got that much ability. It's at Cheltenham, he jumped about 5 or 6 slow, which cost him the race, in my opinion. Moving on to the Topham. Now, people are going to call me stupid or crazy. Do not give up on Mr. Coffee. He's finished 16th. Go and watch the start of the race, or just before the start of the race, sorry. They're milling round, and Nico de Boinville has got Mr. Coffee halfway down the field. Then all of a sudden, he pulls him out, he goes round to the front, and is clear that he wants to be at the front. He then gets shuffled back again, and a gap appears, and he goes through that gap to make sure he's at the front. They jumped off, and as they jumped off, they got a flyer. He was standing there and ended up right out of the back. That was his chance gone. He then made a bad mistake at Beecher's Brook, and granted, I don't think we'll see him over these types of fences again. But I do not want to give up on Mr. Coffee. I am still confident he is really well handicapped. I do think, having run so well in the Kim now, and maybe found this a bit quick, they will step up in trip now, or back up in trip. And there's a couple of races that I think they'll aim at. I think they'll go back to Cheltenham for this race here over 3 Mile 1. As you can see, the quality isn't normally as good. It's almost like a Kim Muir trial. And I think he would turn up, and if he jumps well and doesn't get hampered, he would win it. Off his handicap mark, which I imagine is going to drop, I think he could be 139 after today's run. If he turned up here, I'd be really keen on him, and hopefully, because he's got a big number next to his name, or he'll have a 0, won't he? People will ignore him, and we can get 5, 6, 7 to 1. If he turned up here in this race last year, the race that Definite Plan won, I'd be really, really confident on him winning. So hopefully that's where he goes. And then I think he can win that. I actually think we might see him in this race. The Hennessy, the Ladbroke Trophy. I really think he's that good. And if they win this off 139, for example, and go up to, say, 145, well, I think he's a 150 horse still. So he'd still be well handicapped. So do not give up on Mr. Coffee. Okay, he's run a poor race today, but he ran well in the Kim Muir. He just found one too good. And before that, he'd been running in races that were too competitive for him. The ability of the rivals were too good. Long Press was too good for him at Sandown. But I think the step up in trip against handicappers, and I think he'll go very, very close next time. And hopefully he ends up in the Ladbroke Trophy towards the end of November. Final race I want to talk about, Hacker de Place has just beaten our Severance. So frustrating when Top Rated beats our horse. We had it the other way round with Langardan beating Phil's Doody. The right horses are finished up there. So I think this race will actually work out well for future handicaps. And I imagine probably all 4 of these are going to end up in the Swinton Hurdle at Haydock. I'll just be looking at the handicap marks. Whose handicap mark has been changed slightly. I do wonder whether Whiz Kid could end up being the best handicapped and the most interesting going into that race, because he went far too hard at the beginning. He then dropped back. He then went forward again. It was a bit of a weird race from Whiz Kid. I thought Hacker de Place got a perfect ride. I thought Severance got a really good ride. Maybe slightly slow bringing his whip out after the last, but I think he was just trying to sort it out, and he did everything he could. Washington also ran a really good race. So I think that race will work out well, and it'll all be about the handicap marks next time. The Swinton isn't a conditional jockeys race. So if Hacker de Place, for example, turned up Severance and Washington, and they had gone up £5, £2 level, and WizKid had dropped 1, probably a bit ambitious for WizKid to drop £1. But say they turned up off, okay, he didn't, he stayed on the same mark, and WizKid was being ridden by a claiming jockey, say, is it Killen Leonard? Killen Leonard was riding and was able to keep that weight off, whereas Washington, Severance and Hacker de Place had gone up because a pro jockey was riding. I would be quite keen on WizKid. And likewise, any of the others, if they did the same sort of thing, because I thought all 4 rides were fine. I thought WizKid maybe had the slightly poorer ride out of the 4. So there's some thoughts from the first 2 days. Hopefully we've spotted some for the future. I'm always looking to the future. And I don't mind when we have a bet in a race and a horse gets beat. You just have to look, why did it get beat? Can you give it a reason? What could be the future plan with him? Too many people, I imagine loads of people didn't back Langardan today because he got beat at Cheltenham. They thought they'd spotted the plan, like everybody. He then got brought down at Cheltenham. It wasn't even his own fault. And then they'd gone, I'm not backing him again. He's useless. He's rubbish. He didn't win for me at Cheltenham. Look into the race and actually take out emotion completely is my opinion, is my advice. Thanks for listening. Appreciate all your comments on my videos and on Twitter. Hopefully we've got a few winners for tomorrow as well.